why not? If you know going in, some of these dudes are not going to work out. Fine, they're there to get medicals and interviews anyway. People will want to see, these D3 guys, D2 guys, FCS guys run these 40s next to some dudes at the FBS level that want to run.
You're going to go play ball and things like that and be in college, why not make an extra few dollars? And on top of that, you kind of get connected with the community, you know?
That varsity jacket is sweet, brother. With the red sleeves on there, that is sweet.
Coach got it specially made for us.
Hello, welcome back to Division I Rejects. This is D1R 228. I'm your host, Kobe Manzo. We're in a new setup, which is pretty exciting. I've officially made the move from Marquette, Michigan down to Madison, Wisconsin. Started my new role here with the Badgers, working on some NIL and sponsorship video with all the athletics teams down here at UW-Madison in Wisconsin. And working for a D1 now, still get to talk about all the non-D1. That is kind of the best of both worlds, I think. It's been really cool to be exposed to that upper level Division I athletics in this brand new era of college athletics. And it makes me all the more appreciative and thankful for all these divisions, the ones that I played in and covered and continue to talk about here on a regular basis. So thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you like the new kind of setup and deal as I try to figure this out in the new setup down here in Madison. But this is D1R 228. We've got some fantastic guests on this episode. It's going to be a long one, but a really good one. 3 fantastic interviews coming up for you. We've got Emory Hunt coming on here very soon. He used to play running back at Louisiana, but you probably know him as the football game plan, the czar of the playbook. He's an analyst for CBS. He does some really great in-depth analysis on the NFL draft and everything leading up to it from an evaluation and scouting standpoint. We go in depth on his process, checking out a lot of different all-star games, and of course, what small school products you need to have your eye on heading into this draft cycle in the NFL as we move forward here in April. We've got 2 big-time D2 guests when it comes to tonight's show, one of which is literally the best player in the entire country in D2 football. That's Curtis Allen, the Harlon Hill winner, the running back from Virginia Union that has helped put the Panthers on the map, perennial playoff type team. Curtis joins us and talks about his phenomenal season, a couple other big awards that he's picked up, and of course talk about his pro day and training process leading up to the draft and what will hopefully and potentially be the next professional opportunity for the great back coming out of VUU. And then just after that will be TreShawn Watson, the wide receiver from Minnesota State, who is a phenomenal player in his own right. An injury kind of ended his season early in 2025, but he was still a very big impact maker for the Mavs there in the NSIC. We talked with him, of course, about the rehab, the recovery process, getting back to 100%, meeting with all the different kinds of scouts and different people at multiple levels, but also getting to do a lot of the NIL conversation. What is NIL? What does that mean for the D2 athlete? And how can a D2 athlete make, dare I say, almost 6 figures in NIL over the course of their career? He's the guy to talk to. He makes some really great points about the positive impact of name, image, and likeness and how it can impact, again, positively the members of the community and get athletes from all sports more involved in some of those local endeavors. So really appreciate him pulling back the curtain on that topic. That was a great conversation to stick around for. Otherwise, in D2, we've got 2 HBCU teams playing in the freaking Bahamas in November. That announcement came kind of out of left field earlier this week, but we're really excited to talk about that. Tim and Drew join me in that portion of the episode. We have a lot of fun with that one. We had a D2 quarterback down in the PSAC out of Clarion that just signed with the Argonauts in the CFL, so shout out to Anthony. And then tough times for the Gulf South. Man, this is a conference that loses West Florida to D1 as they're making the jump to FCS. They've got only 3 football members inside of the conference left. We talk about it. What are they going to do? What is the official statement from the Gulf South? Who's the commissioner? Who's running the show down there? There's a lot of conversation points around that. In the D3 world, this is one of the cooler ones that we've talked about in a while, man. We've got a former D3 kicker, punter, specialist type that is pitching legitimate innings in the MLB, and he's doing so at a very good clip for the Marlins right now. So we'll talk about Jake later on in the show. Crazy times. I want to stick in the baseball world. Crazy freaking times for D3 baseball. We've got fires in the outfield. We've got Amish horse and buggy running into a school bus on the way to a game. you just got to be there to see it. It's very fun conversation. Try to keep it lighthearted, but holy cow, D3 baseball is on a hell of a run right now. And then you go to the WIAC, got a big WIAC matchup that's been flexed to a Friday night that we'll talk about. D3 football on a Friday is kind of interesting. And then the star tight end out of River Falls, Blake Rohrer, committing to Duke. We'll touch on that a little bit. In the NAIA scene, just myself tonight, but we've got a former star NAIA quarterback getting his AF1 start, which is a different arena league, and then another one who also is signing and making his arena league, getting his toes wet there in the arena league. So 2 former signal callers at the NAIA level trying to get some professional opportunities. But appreciate you all tuning in. Let's get right into this thing. Keep D1R rolling. Joining the show on this special episode of D1 Rejects, we've got the CEO of the football game plan in the building. He's shifting gears into evaluating this year's NFL draft class, fresh off releasing his own 2026 draft guide that I'm sure we'll talk about here. It's Louisiana alum, CBS analyst, Emory Hunt. What's going on, man?
Doing fine, man. Appreciate you bringing me on the show.
Really excited to get you on here. Before we get into all the small school stuff, we saw the man Dan Orlovsky just got murdered and dragged across social for his take on Fernando Mendoza. And I'm digging back, doing my research, and hearing you talk about all these prospects. And here's a little thumbnail. Emory Hunt thinks Fernando Mendoza, second-round pick. Talk to me about your second-round talent, Talk to me about that process, man, because we saw Dano get absolutely killed on the internet for a long time because of that. But when you hear yourself and others that are intelligent about the game explain it, it makes a lot of sense. Just because someone is a talent for a certain level does not always guarantee they will be picked in that maybe round or kind of setting. Is that kind of what my takeaway?
That's exactly what it is.
There you go.
And it's funny because when I talked about that with I compared him to Jared Goff. I said
Yes.
a more athletic Jared Goff, and people was like, "Well, how can a more athletic Jared Goff be considered a second-round talent when he went first overall?" Well, firstly, I had a third-round grade in terms of talent on Jared Goff.
There you go.
So obviously, a more athletic one will be second round. You know what I'm saying? So I think people. That's why I want to say the 2016 draft class was sort of a pivot for me to get away from saying round grades, because people didn't really have an idea of what that meant. And they just thought it was along the lines of, do I think this guy will go in round 3? And so having to stop explaining that, I just went by number grades after that. And so whatever they go, it doesn't matter to me, because that's how I truly felt at the time. So now when I say this guy's kind of a second round talent, obviously he's going to go in the first round, but my grading shows you where I think he could be a solid starter. But if I had a team, if I had to pick, I probably wouldn't take this guy in round 1.
And it's all up to the team, too. I mean, you look at the way that teams, this is a whole other conversation of how they draft and whether it is positional value, or we've heard Lions fan here like Brad Holmes talk about, man, we're just going to take the best player on the board. Like, if we think that this is the best guy on the board, we don't care what he plays, he's coming. Then not every team thinks like that. They might have certain deals, but let's talk about your work, and I'll let you talk about your body of work more. But what is impressive from my perspective is the volume of work that you do, because I think from your perspective, and you said it even before we got going on, I don't want to talk about a guy that I don't have a write-up on. So the volume and the lengths that you go to cover all these guys that nobody else is talking about, what drives that for you?
It's the fact that it starts from how I got into the industry, man. And it was, basically, G5 player, injured player, career cut short. Then you go coach, but you realize a lot of the players you played with ended up playing. They were really good players. They end up playing in the CFL. They end up playing the indoor league, arena football league. When that was, significant things. And so you realize, like, man, there's talent everywhere. And then once you got into the industry, it was like, okay, do we want to compete and create something that just is NFL and at the time Division 1A or FBS or whatever it was called at the time, Power 5 or whatever. And it's like, man, let's just cover everything. So we covered, women's tackle football, the World League when it was, or NFL Europe when it was still around, CFL, indoor, arena, all of it, right? And so we covered it all equally. So therefore, people, got the chance to see the depth and the breadth of information. And so for me, bringing all that to the NFL draft space, when you have a background and knowing that not everybody that plays at lower level can't play at the pro level, as opposed to seeing that all in, time and time again, like, man, just include everybody. And not just specifically kind of silo guys off, include them in the mix. So if we're gonna grade you as if we're grading a guy from Kansas, it doesn't matter. You go to Kansas Wesleyan, we're going to grade you the same way, and we're going to put you in the mix that are creating just a small school and a big school. Like, now, all of it's the same. All of it's prospects.
Love that. Shout out the Coyotes down there, Kansas Wesleyan. They've played some good ball here recently. But for you now, just released 2026 draft guide. How has that continued to get better and become more comprehensive year in and year out? And what separates it maybe from that first iteration that you put out, way long back there?
Well, the first one I put out the first guide I put out was in 2020. And I tell you right now, I did the background, the numbers was 688 was the first number of prospects I had in 2020. And so that was the first guy, but I was kicking around the idea since 2018. And what I found is that, instead of trying to parse through the guys that I saw live in terms of the All-Star games, because I go to all 9. So when you go to all 9, you was like, okay, I could obviously include all senior and shrine, but I was like, man, I'm doing this a disservice. Why would I go to these All-Star games and not include everybody that I've watched in the guide? Like, that defeats the purpose. So as I've going to all the All-Star games every year, I just include everybody that I've seen, on top of the guys that are at the combine, that declare, that are early entrants that you don't see at the All-Star games. So that's how the volume of numbers just kind of kept growing and growing. So this is back-to-back years. We put in over 1,200 individual scouting reports, because that's the amount of prospects I've seen. Because
that's huge.
What bugs me is the fact that you can't rank someone if you haven't seen them, and if you've seen them and have them ranked, why isn't there a write-up? What are we doing? How can you say this guy's my 88th running back and all you have is a name, height, and weight? Well, how did you get to that point? What makes him separate from your 67th running back, who you also don't have a write-up on? So all my reports are all in the guide. So when people get the guide, it is all write-ups. It is all filet, no fat. It's just straight scouting reports.
I love that. I'm going to start incorporating that into my everyday lingo for sure. That's footballgameplan.com/2026 draft guide. Make that available, and nice, easy digital version immediately onto computer, or almost immediately onto computer. All the information right at your fingertips. You've done almost 7,000 of those evaluations over your time. What's changed about your approach from that quote-unquote year one, even though you had the idea before then, and back to 2020? What's changed about the way that you start to gather this information and make those evaluations from then until now? What have you learned through that process, man?
My blade has gotten sharper, and it's funny. If I go back to 2009. So this is 2 years into Football Game Plan. We pivoted away from just straight website to YouTube when nobody was doing YouTube. So we were just throwing all of our reports on YouTube, and it was just like, all right. And it was the same thing. Like, you just see a name with a number, and it was like, well, I was in the comments battling because people was asking, like, well, what makes this guy different today? Well, here's my report on him. And I'm going, now in my desk behind me, I have the binders of my written notes.
Hey, we can see it. We can see that right there. Yeah.
So it's like, why even, fake the funk? Like, let me just give all this to. And so that's why the idea was getting kicked around in 2018. But 2020, when COVID hit, it just kind of set us down. And so it's like, all right, now I got time to put this out. And so when, over the time, as you become more inclined to, really breaking down what you're looking for and what you're seeing, I think for me, the biggest jump was being able to, now starting to cover, I won't say like 2014 or 15, covering the Giants a lot, being at training camp all the time, mini camp, OTAs, and you're seeing the pro level consistently, and you're seeing what works. You're seeing body types, you're seeing athleticism. You pair that to now you're calling games at the FCS level. And then you pair that when you're at the All-Star game circuit, you're getting a true one-to-one to where you're seeing, okay, now I've seen the FCS player next to the Power 5 player. I've seen this, work at the pro level when I've seen these guys come into these rookie mini camps, and I see how it translates. And all of that now is starting to really narrow your focus to where you can go in there and just instantly say, okay, yeah, this guy has a chance. And it could be, mini camp guy to he's a UFL guy, he's a CFL guy, he's a European League of Football guy, all of that stuff like that. Kind of just consistently watching football and being around the game at the highest level helps make your job kind of round out a bit as a evaluator.
Absolutely, man. Let's talk about those all-star games a little bit. I know this is the case for all college guys finishing up their career. It could feel that your entire 4 or 5, I mean, we're talking college football now, maybe 8 years of playing college football is
Right.
collectively leading up to this one showcase event, all-star game. For the small school guys, that is just magnified, right? Because now you have gone on and you have to beat all these allegations of competition and who have you played. And so now you get this one chance and opportunity. You being boots on the ground for a lot of these over the last couple of years, I'm sure has taught you a lot about that from the small school player perspective. The D2, the D3, the NAIA guy. Tyron Montgomery is a guy that's made a lot of headlines this year. Joe Cooper from Slippery Rock was at the Shrine Bowl. We've had some good representation in those. We, using as a broad term of the small school community, what is it about those environments outside the fact, of course, that they get to line up across from the guy from the SEC, Big Ten, ACC power? What is it about those environments that you think has really helped those guys in those shoes elevate their game and maybe get them on a couple big boards, so to speak?
Well, it shows you body types. I can't stress that enough. That is important.
Okay.
Because we know all websites lie about height and weight.
Sure.
The old 2-inch cheat, 20-pound cheat, 10-pound cheat, whatever the case may be. So it starts at the FCS Bowl, which is the first one out the gate in December. And so you get to that one and you see a lot. This one is primarily all small schools. So you're seeing FCS to NAIA at this all-star game, but at least you're seeing these guys for the first time, like body types. And so, okay, this kid really is 6'1". He's not 200 pounds. He's legitimately 175. So obviously it was a significant lie on the website, but you're seeing, all of these body types, right? And then now you see these guys thrust into a situation where they're not just dominating their teammates or guys in their conference.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see how you compete against this guy that even if it's on a small scale, let's see the NAIA guy versus the Division II guy versus the FCS guy. So you still starting to see, how much of this translates. And we've seen guys go from the FCS Bowl to the Tropical Bowl and then to the College Gridiron Showcase. So we've seen guys kind of move up through the ranks, but that's where it starts for the small school guy. You've played your career. Now you're at these all-star games where you really got to show up and show out. No matter which one you're at, you got to stand out. And on top of that, when we're talking about body types, you're seeing who actually put in work in the weight room.
Yeah.
Because that's important too. Because what we've seen, and this happens a lot at the bigger level, like at the FBS level, where you're seeing guys trying to get serious about it with, 4 months into the draft. Like, no, body types start when you come in as a freshman. Mm-hmm. And that kind of, so it becomes your process. So you can't just try to get it all in one, fell swoop in the off season. You got to really put that work in as a freshman. And we've seen, time and time again, guys that have guys get opportunity based off just the body type. And I've seen scouts talk about this from the FCS Bowl all the way through the Senior Bowl.
And something I'm curious about here, and this is something that I've seen kind of time and time again with the small school guy. I use Tyron Montgomery as a great example just because of the recency of that. He goes and has, whether it's at the Dream Bowl or earning his way up to that Senior Bowl, like you have that earning of rite of passage kind of through the different levels and tiers of bowl games. But when he goes out and he makes a fantastic grab over some highly touted Division I corner, and that clip's doing numbers on social, and it goes on, it gets, couple 100,000 views gathered across places. Yes, of course, there's going to be some scouts and people in attendance that are going to take notice of that. How much of that is important? I imagine both of those different types of PR are important, but what is the disconnect sometimes there, where obviously just because you generate clicks at a certain event does not mean you automatically rise on the board of all 32 teams in the National Football League, UFL, CFL, otherwise. How important are both types of PR and, I guess, inside the building opinion, and how do they correlate?
They have, that's a great question. They have to correlate because here's the thing. And this is something I've learned early too, and you see it as you've been on the circuit for a while, you'll see the All-Star game standout is no different than a practice All-American, right?
There you go.
And so my thing is, because this is my first time really diving into the process of evaluating in January, December, first week of December, it's just, in the sense of the first All-Star game viewing of a prospect, and you stand out there, I know now over years that, okay, this is a good showing, but that tape better show the same thing you're doing out here in this at the Senior Bowl in the
100%.
All-Star game circuit. So sometimes you see evaluators, and I'm talking about the media evaluators, they get stuck on, what they seen at the All-Star game and use that as the end-all be-all until February when they work out, and then they just they throw away all their tape only, in person only, because this dude ran fast at the combine. You see this with Lee Hunter. They love Lee Hunter at the Senior Bowl. He didn't test well at the combine. Now they don't like Lee Hunter anymore. But like you just said, like we was doing football stuff. It was so it always have to mesh, right? Because you'll see, and a lot of times, and this goes back to understanding what's legit and what's not in terms of practice and how to watch practice and what to take away from it.
Sure.
That the wide receiver DB 101 goes viral on social, but you also know that this is heavily slanted toward the offensive side of the ball. And I'm an offensive guy. Of course, with no pass rush, 17 seconds to run the route, you are going to make 17 cuts, right? And make this guy look silly. No safety help, he's in a bad spot. Same with O-line, D-line 101, right?
Yes, great example, yes.
So, of course, this is an advantage for the defender as opposed to the offensive lineman. So that's why some people get too high off what they've seen in practice, not understanding how to watch practice, what to look for in practice. But all of that being said, the tape if I see Tyron Montgomery, mossing cats at the Senior Bowl, I better go on film versus, St. John's to see him do the same exact thing. I better see him do it against Ohio Northern. I better see him do it against Ohio Wesleyan. I better see all of that, right? Because if I don't see it there, why am I seeing it here? Why didn't you do it there when you had the same type of opportunities?
I think that's a good point. It's got to be consistent. It has to confirm or reaffirm the things that you've already seen on that next level. You talk about the combine a little bit. What's it going to take to get more small school guys in the door at the combine? I know it's not the end-all, be-all, as some guys might think it is, but does seem to be a lot more of a rarity than in years past that we get a couple of D2 or D3 guys to represent on that stage.
I think if they really want to make it a TV product like they're trying to do by moving the workouts to prime time as opposed to while we're there all, interviewing and going through the podium section, why not? If you going in, some of these dudes are not going to work out, fine. They're there to get medicals and interviews anyway. Always have guys that are going to come there and work out. People will want to see, these D3 guys, D2 guys, FCS guys run these 40s next to some dudes at the FBS level that want to run, but that's what people want to see. They want to see those guys go out there and perform all the drills. Well, we know the top guys won't perform all the drills. Why not bring guys in that will, and or have a separate sort of combine for those, at the same time while we're all there. You will help.
Now you're talking. Yeah, now you're talking.
You know what I'm saying? Bring those guys in to work out only. And have another separate media session there. That way you kind of have media stay there the whole week and not leave and shortchange the old linemen, because everybody's getting out of there like first thing smoking Friday morning, or Saturday morning. So why not? And so therefore you can create the drama of, man, this kid out of Bethune-Cookman ran 4.2, and wow, that's cool. Like we would never seen him run or never seen how fluid. Think about this prime example, right? The combine would have been a great opportunity for Monty Quinn to go out there and do his thing.
Boom.
Now we all heard of him all throughout the season, the 500-yard game, great, and we didn't see nothing from him. In the All-Star game circuit, nothing, no buzz or whatnot. This would have been somebody that we heard of. We all talked about the 500-yard rushing game. Here he is working out at the combine on NFL Network. And we got all the bright lights, and also it could show you who is ready for the moment, who's been putting in that work. That's what I want to see.
Absolutely. That would be a great opportunity for that. And, people love stories, right? And these guys are much more than just good stories. They're hell of ball players as well. But at the end of the day, the stories tend to be a lot more interesting from the guys that aren't expected to maybe be there. It would also be a lot tougher to stump the truck if we had a lot more guys up there from the small school levels. That's always one of the favorite segments, when you kind of sit there and do like the Leo pointing at the couch when you know exactly who they're talking about, man. But talk to me now. You get into this class, this set of evaluations. Who are rather some of the guys from the small school, those D2, D3, NAIA levels right away that stand out to you that you've had the chance to evaluate that people really need to be aware of heading into this draft?
Man, you know what's fascinating is like watching some of these guys. You think like, man, I can't wait to talk about this guy because either I'm bugging or this guy's gonna be he's gonna be a player.
I like that.
The Division III Monmouth College in Illinois, Anthony Chikowskis, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. Phenomenal pass rusher, like consistent, like had like a gang of TFLs. I want to say like in the 20s and 30s, something ridiculous like that. But his tape checked out rather well, and that's someone that really stood out to me from the Division III level. And full disclosure, people need to understand how good Division III football is. And I know people kind of use it as a throwaway term, but it's not, man. These dudes are legit athletic. They're talented. There's some great Division III football games that we've seen all across the country every season. Be locked in. Sometimes we'd be in studio at the time, and we'd be locked into this Division III game, like as we're getting ready for NFL, recap or something like that. We're like, yo, this North Central game going off. Like we don't want to leave. Like we captivated. So there's a lot of talent, but he's one of those guys that stood out to me. I would also say from Georgetown FCS program, I talked about him a lot, but Jimmy Kibble was phenomenal to watch his progress throughout the course of his career. I know his dad kicked in the NFL, and he wanted his son to kick and go to a FBS program, but someone to play receiver. Stayed at Georgetown, 6'1", 200 pounds, 4.45. Had the viral moment this year where he had the game-winning Hail Mary on a wild 45 seconds against Morgan State, where he caught the Hail Mary and outraced guys to the end zone. And that ended up getting him on the Jimmy Kimmel show because of obviously the play on his last name. So,
yeah, there we go. Yeah, that felt like a layup. Yep.
Yeah, it was like an easy. That's like 1 + 2 = 3. So that was a good one there. He's a good receiver, Monmouth in New Jersey.
Yeah,
Derek Robertson, phenomenal. I called a lot of Monmouth games, so I've seen him a lot. And even on the broadcast, the whole running joke I had every week was, if you lose a possession of Monmouth, you're down 2 scores because they're scoring every time they got the ball. And so, to watch him get hurt, I think he hurt his hand against Delaware State. If he doesn't get hurt, Monmouth is playing for the national championship because that offense was averaging 35, 40 points a game because he was just so locked into what they were doing and how easy it was. So he to me is the #1 quarterback at the FCS level. And a couple of programs I saw kept popping up. Abilene Christian had 2 of the top guys at my respective rankings. Running back, they had Jordan Vaughn, 6'3", 229. He's a top graded small college running back I have. And the top graded 4'3" defensive end was Kagan Roach from Abilene Christian. Saw him at the College Gridiron Showcase. Saw both guys at the College Gridiron Showcase.
Yeah, CGS, good event. Know some of the people over there. What about some of the Division II guys coming out in this year's class? Anyone stand out at the top of that list? I know Jack Strand out of Moorhead's generated a lot of buzz. Of course, Joe Cooper out of Slippery Rock at the Shrine Bowl. But any other names that we need to know about that you've definitely had on your radar?
Yes, too. And this is the last year we could say this program as a D2 program. But West Florida.
There you go.
Kobe Taylor. Edge rusher, just off the edge, consistent. Like he just constantly blew things up. He's my #1 edge rusher for the small college ranks. And Ricky Friedman, Western Colorado, defensive end. I think he could be a 3-4 end, like a 5 technique. He could rush. He has long arms, good ability to really shock, disengage, and get to the quarterback. Thought he stood out a lot. Darnell Stevens, Fort Valley State corner.
Yep.
I saw him down at the HBCU Legacy Bowl. Long, athletic, click and close guy, good reaction skills. And Morehouse cornerback, too. Carlos Donovan was another one that really stood out. I was like shocked when I was there watching him and just compete with these FCS, HBCU prospects. So those are some of the Division II guys that really stood out.
You see where Morehouse is playing this fall in November?
in the Bahamas. Like, check Morehouse out. Like,
Come
y'all
on.
got money to go play in the Bahamas. How about y'all move to FCS? Like, enjoying the sweat.
I mean, that I did a double take on that one when that went up on X the other day. I did a double take on that, man. But you talk about those guys, you rattle off some of those names. What are some of the common traits you feel like they share that gives you and maybe some others optimism about their futures potentially at the next level?
Well, when you see like the size, right? And I'm a big size is not a skill fan. So if you don't have the size, you better have the skill that usurps that, right? Because there's a bunch of shorter, explosive receivers that I like that would be phenomenal talents at gunner and also returners with the dynamic, return that we have at the NFL level. Like from a kid from Franklin and Marshall, I think it's Gary Taylor's name. I don't have it offhand, but you have Franklin and Marshall, you have UW Claire, Eau Claire, and you have a kid from DePaul as well, Robbie Ballantyne. So you got a bunch of these guys that can really just go out there and just fly. But the common trait is the physical stature. Do they match up? Can they physically look the part? Even though I hate the rookie mini camps, because it's just like, can you just get through 3 days? And it's hard for guys. If you got 20 wide receivers, if you're 18th, I've seen this happen before with a kid at the Giants. Like you can see the realization in his head, like, man, I got one rep this period. Like, ain't no way I'm making this team. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't do what I can't show I can do with just one rep at wide receiver 19. You know what I'm saying? So that's the downside of it. But you see who can go out there and just fit in, look the part, play the part, compete, make a play a day, as we like to say. But you want to make sure they can at least look like an NFL player at a rookie mini camp. And if that's the case, then boom. Now, obviously, that there's sliding scales for that at the different positions, but you can't be a 5'11", center or a nose tackle if you don't have that ridiculous strength, quickness, and even though that is hard for a guy to really stand out at a rookie minicamp because there's no pads. So you're basically talking about the skill players, but physically, you want to see these guys stand out, and as you're watching their film, you're saying, okay, I see how this guy is dominating physically. There was a kid, Anthony Rupchik from Culver Stockton. From Aurora. Maybe Culver Stockton or Aurora. I want to say like a couple years ago. He ended up playing for the Tennessee Titans. And when I went and watched his film, because he was at the NFLPA Bowl when that was around. So I'm at the NFLPA Bowl. I'm like, yo, he had the size or whatever. And I hadn't graded his film yet. But he looked good in practice at the NFLPA. Obviously he's matching up against guys who are going to be playing the league. Man, when I would go back and watch this film, when I say in my scouting report, it was comical to watch him just throw dudes around. Like, just like legitimately, like it was like, oh, this kid, where's his birth certificate? Because clearly he is older than these dudes. Like, he is just tossing, but that's what you expect a big lineman from the NAIA ranks to do on film. That's what stands out. And I was just lucky to see him at the All-Star game, sir, because had he not been in one, I'd be like, man, I don't know how, is this real? Like, I don't know how good he is because I can't compare it. I'll just have to grade him accordingly. But when you saw him physically match up, against pass rushers from, Kansas State and hold his own and stuff like that, you're like, all right, this dude got something with him. And I feel like he's still on an NFL roster. And so that's what really has to stand out, your size. And then if I see you in person, you have to look the part, and you have to have some movement skills as well, because obviously it's an athletic game, and pro level athleticism is a little bit different.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate your time. I won't take any more of it. We talked about the Draft Guide 2026 version, which is out now. They can go grab. Where else can they find you, man? Anytime you're on the screen, I'm tuned in.
Follow me on Twitter at FBallGamePlan, and you'll see me all over CBS Sports HQ, CBS Sports Network, as we're barreling down toward the 2026 NFL Draft.
In the World Division II football, some of you may be familiar with the Bahamas Bowl. Not at all we're talking about tonight, but we've got two teams from D2 football, from the SIAC in particular, that will be making the trip to Nassau to play in 2026 in November, fellas. One of the more ridiculous headlines I think that I've seen in the last couple of months. I won't lie to you. I did a double take. We're into the second or so week of April. thought it might have been April Fool's probably for the first 30 seconds. But it's real. Kentucky State, Morehouse College, they're playing November 7th down there in Nassau. We got the official release from both of their respective athletic programs last week. Give me the initial impressions on D2 football in the islands.
I love it. I think if the D1 programs are going to have a chance to go play around the world, around the country, to different places, why not Division II and Division III? It's a great opportunity to get these kids down, have some fun. I know that, players or schools in the past have gone down for that Bahamas Bowl. They got stipends and money to play around with the whole week. They get to practice in the Bahamas. I mean, who doesn't want to take a trip down there and have some fun? So I think it's great for Division II. I think it's great for Division III, and it's awesome.
A stipend in the Bahamas with, assuming for a game like this, I would have to imagine that everyone's going to travel. I don't know if I've gotten that much into the weeds in terms of research. You got to imagine everyone travels for a trip like this?
I hope so.
Yeah. I definitely would.
I'd be very annoyed if I couldn't get on the bus for that one or the plane.
If you're the guy to miss out on the trip.
Yeah. No, I think it's really cool too. I think with the Division I kind of landscape these days of like bowl games not necessarily mattering as much, right? With the Division II program, you get like a technical like bowl game like this, or not even necessarily like a bowl game, but you see what I'm trying to say. Like it feels like almost like a bowl game, and the kids are going to eat it up. The schools are going to eat it up to where it's like it means a ton for them. So getting to see them on that type of level and that type of landscape compared to a Division I team that's typically used to this is probably like going to be refreshing for people.
Well, it's all about the experience, and I know I'm taking that from Coach Janis up at Northern, but the experience of a small school athlete, trying to find different ways to elevate their experience and their time at school. And like you said, feels like a pseudo bowl game. This is a conference opponent. These are two SIAC teams that are traveling buku amount of miles to go play a football game. But you take a look, that's the stadium right there, Thomas A. Robinson National Stadium down there in Nassau. Here's a good clip, at least to show you a couple of good shots, of course, of the geographic location, but also the actual setup down there, and pretty sweet, unique deal down in the Bahamas. There was actually supposed to be another trip we'll talk about in a second for Kentucky State last year that I believe would have been to Puerto Rico. That one did not end up happening. So you have to imagine the thoroughbreds down there are excited for the potential of something else here in the very near future. This is the post that I saw from, shout out Reddit College Football, always a great follow on X and the different platforms. But their post on X talked about that potential trip last year. They said, hopefully Kentucky State gets to play this in the Bahamas. Last season, they were supposed to play in the inaugural Caribbean HBCU Puerto Rico Bowl. Try saying that like 8 times fast. In Mayagüez, which is the west coast of Puerto Rico, against a non-HBCU opponent on a game week. They had to move it to Franklin Pierce's stadium up in Tim's neck of the woods in New Hampshire. So you go from playing on the west side of Puerto Rico to New Hampshire in a matter of weeks because everything fell through. That's tough.
Jump off a bridge after hearing
No.
That's crazy.
Like, that's brutal. But first off, what alumni Fortune 500 company guy is forking over all this money?
Great question.
Kentucky State go to these. Like, this isn't like, right? Like, we all went to Division II schools. It's not like they're like, hey, yo, you guys want to go to the Bahamas, or hey, you want to go to Puerto Rico, the biggest team on campus. Like, that's a pretty penny.
It definitely is. And with an event like this is the HBCU, the Yes HBCU Go. I forget the title off the top of my head, but a lot of times with bigger events like that, they'll invite these teams out and kind of the payment partially will be taken care of in terms of like a TV revenue spot or other things for those big kind of events, especially early in the season or bowl game type deals. But this is not going to be a huge TV spot. They're not going to pull in crazy revenue for this. So to your point, man, someone's got to back this. And these are schools that, let's be very honest, these are schools that in kind of the history of things have not been known to have the funds to go out and do a massive trip like this. That's just the nature of the landscape. So for them to be at this position is pretty awesome. We can talk more, though, about each of these squads a little bit. You go and talk about the thoroughbreds. Last year, they went 9-2, fellas, and made it to the national playoffs for the first time in their program's history. This is not a program that's only been around for a couple of decades. That was their best season since 1935 for Kentucky State. Thoroughbreds got to be one of the better mascots. It's right up there with the Gorillas for me in all of D2 football, or NCAA football for that matter. Their head coach there, Felton Huggins Jr., he went 3-7 in his first year, 5-6 in 24, and then of course flipped this thing on its head, improved by 4 wins last year. What's next for this team? What's next for this group? That's the question.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you come off a season like that, right, you're on a high and you want to take that into the off season. So I think it's all about what they're doing right now. You know, you want to capitalize on their best season last year. How do you come back? What do you do differently? Do you do the same things coming into this season? So it's going to be interesting to see what they do, if they just keep it the same and keep it going, or if they make some changes.
There will be changes. There already have been changes in their opponent, guys, that they're playing down there in Nassau. That being Morehouse. They announced back in December that their head coach and offensive line coach would both be let go. Now the Maroon Tigers rather, were 4-16 under Coach Mathis's leadership. He was let go, and then they announced a few months later in February that they had a new head coach of the program, one that you guys may or may not actually recognize. Brad Sherrod takes over for the Maroon Tigers down there. Most recently spent a couple of years down at NAIA, soon to be D2 actually, member at Texas Wesleyan in the South there. He had a really couple good years there, but his coaching tree and his expertise extends far beyond the NAIA level. I mean, his resume, I think I have it pulled up in the doc if you guys want to take a look. I won't go through all the different stops that this guy has made. Just know that he has been at just about every level of college football imaginable, and he has actually won at a decent clip at most levels. Again, his most recent stint at Texas Wesleyan certainly makes him a good fit for this job with the Maroon Tigers. So big time name taking over for a squad that felt like maybe we're in desperate need of some new leadership. Could have a lot of new blood for this Maroon Tiger team in 2026.
Yeah, Kobe, we've seen what new blood can do as far as new coaching staff and the schools looking around at our geographic, right? The state of Michigan. So you can only imagine it, like, new blood sometimes is what you need to revive a program and to get it going, to get the things on get everything on the wheels and then start pushing it, gradually. And then all of a sudden the car starts driving itself, right? So that's what you need right here.
I like that. Let's look at Kentucky State's schedule upcoming here for 2026. You look at this is a pretty front-loaded, I think, safe to say schedule. Central State is a team that defensively has shown a lot of promise the last couple of years. You go at Southern and then at Clark Atlanta and against Saginaw Valley. Then you even get into the heart of the schedule here at an Albany State team that's been at the top of the conference. Edward Waters now is the last Division II football team in all of Florida. Miles, Lane, Savannah State, and then finally that game that we talked about with Morehouse. So to me, are you going to go and improve on a 9-2 year? If I'm a betting man, probably not. This Thoroughbreds team has proven me wrong more than once in the past. I'm telling you right now, though, a win total, if we're looking at any type of win total for this squad, I think we're looking at an over-under of like a 7.5. I don't think is crazy to say. But again, I think I can go and prove me wrong this fall.
What stands out to me on this schedule, though, is that this Bahamas game is the last game of the season, because that's a massive variable, especially if that's a must-win game for the playoff or the conference. A little bit odd there, because usually you see these international games or these out of the continental USA games, right? Whether it's in Ireland or whatever we're seeing in the NFL all the time, they're always at the beginning of the season. Having this as your last game of the year is a bit odd to me, and I think that might throw a wrench into the schedule there.
Yeah, and you remember the end of the season this past year for Kentucky State, who we ended up talking about quite a bit because of the lack thereof of a game. Remember, they were supposed to have Delta State in that scheduled contest towards the back end of the season. They end up backing out of that deal, and now it was pitched and kind of spread in a way that really painted Kentucky State and that squad in a bad light, as if they were ducking competition. We've come to find out since then through a couple sources that wasn't necessarily the way it went down. It did not go down perfectly, and it did not go down in the best way possible, but I don't think Kentucky State maybe had the worst intentions when doing that. Now, of course, that did protect their playoff hopes, but you talk about that, man, that is that's a ridiculous way to end the year. And if this is a team that has real playoff implications and chances, you're taking the last trip before you go into potentially the NCAA playoffs. You're doing the Bahamas. Like that is not the time to go do an international type game. That just seems wild to me. I think there's a reason why a lot of these schools started off week 0 or week 1.
It's giving New York Giants on the boat vibes, if you know what I mean.
Now, if that is the last game of their season and you're a senior on that team,
yeah,
win or lose, are you taking the plane home? Are you taking the plane home?
Give me the stipend.
Give me the
stipend. What?
I think the school is liable, but
They
like
are.
you'd fight that for sure.
But
right? Like
all the schools, and I've been through this, Drew. You guys, you may have run into this too. But say Northern Michigan or Michigan Tech, where you're at, you're playing downstate, and a lot of guys, if it's a long weekend or a holiday or whatever, they might stay down there for a day or two with their family. They can sign a release saying, "Hey, I am absolving NMU or this school from being responsible for getting me back to the university. I'm going to stay with my family." Let's hope the compliance departments at these two schools are ready to fill out some paperwork, because I have a feeling, Tim, that there might be some extra time down in Nassau.
Why not?
Kobe, we did that. We did that at Northern.
There you go. That's perfect. That's perfect, dude. So I think just like sentiment, though, is like super excited for both these programs. This is going to be an awesome experience for all the guys on this team. Some new leadership on one side, a lot of winning culture. I think in a recent success with some of these teams is a lot to really be excited about. We'll keep going, though, in terms of D2 football. Let's head over to the PSAC. We got a former quarterback that is signed and made his way into the CFL, guys. That is Anthony Guercio, going from Clarion to the Toronto Argonauts. And I'll list off some of these guys that he's joining on this roster. When you go through this list, you're going to be very surprised, fellas. I mean, go down the list here. Right away, a lot of D2 guys on this list. Peyton Buckley in that defensive backfield from Augustana of the Vikings. Delonte Hood from Peru State. Tyler Common from Emporia State. Stud wide receiver down there for the Hornets. You got Brandon Kemp from Valdosta State. Reed Martin from Edinburgh, another PSAC piece right there. A couple D3 guys, Derek Sluka from Ithaca, who was an impact player on the special teams and defensive game for the Argos last year. And then, of course, our guy Tucker Horn from down in Trinity, Texas. This is a CFL team where you guys know as well as I, it's so hard to get Americans on these rosters and to stay on these rosters because of the limitations they have put in place. This team is riddled with small school guys at the D2, D3, and a little bit of NAIA flair right there. But to talk about Anthony a little bit, and this fit here, this was the announcement from Clarion Football earlier this week here, the signing, heading up obviously to Toronto. And this is a guy that had some pretty solid stats in his career. You know, you look back this past year, first team all PSAC. He has the completion percentage record at Clarion with 66.5%, over 2,500 total yards, 26 tuds to only 5 interceptions. Really efficient play, a guy that got it done in a lot of different ways, fellas. What did you see when you turned on the tape?
Do you want to go?
Yeah, copy and paste what you said, Kobe. Efficiency, right? No, like that's the name of the game, right? You got, if you're setting completion percentage records in school, it's because you're running the offense, and I don't want to necessarily say it's because like, oh, you know the plays, but you're also knowing how it's going to affect the defense, right? So like if I got cover 3 and you can identify that shell, boom, let's attack the seams, right? So I think that's what you're seeing is someone who definitely is precise, precision, was able to attack the defense exactly where you need. And then obviously when you get some run after the catch, doesn't help either, or doesn't not help either. So
yeah. It definitely doesn't. The PSAC conference that has been, I think, is an up and down in the last couple of years as any. Of course, Kutztown, Slippery Rock are some of those teams that have really cemented their way. Cal is another team, Cal PA down there. There's others, of course. But
a little bit of athleticism right there.
You see it. You see it with the legs as well. But a couple of those teams, like it was never a given in this conference. You look back, Edinburgh got the best of Slippery Rock during the regular season last year, and there was a lot of parity inside of this conference. Clarion is not necessarily a team that at this particular moment you associate with the top level, but if you watch it from an individual standpoint, individual performance, this is a big opportunity for him. Certainly has really good presence inside of the pocket. Doesn't have maybe some of the measurables of your prototypical NFL caliber quarterback. And I know we talked about Jack Strand a lot in this draft class and way that his measurables kind of jump off right at you when you talk about him from a professional standpoint and evaluation standpoint. But there's a lot to like when you watch what this guy does in between the stripes.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's a dual threat quarterback. I mean, his mobility is one of his strengths as well. I'm not sure how the Canadian game favors mobility.
Yeah.
I know they do play on a bigger field. And I don't know if there's been kind of changes in recent years to how the game is adapted to more dual threat players. But that's definitely a strength. You love to have that. He's just going to have to learn how to read pro coverages, but you love to see a Division II guy get the looks, whether it's the NFL, the CFL, XFL, whatever, man. You're playing at the next level. You made it farther than 0.1% of any of the guys who's ever played the sport. So
Amen.
Congratulations to him. And honestly, the Argos team taking all those D2 players, salute to them as well.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
they've been good too.
Yeah, I went to Toronto last summer, and they have a huge fan base over there. So shout out to them. Have some fun, man. Sling the rock, eat some bacon, and have a good time.
I'm a Hamilton Tiger Cats fan personally.
You are?
Yeah. Shout out Stevie Doug.
There you go. Yes. That's another good one that we should mention, of course, too. That was a big pickup and a big thing for him. Now you go down, let's go down south, close off some of the D2 conversation today, the Gulf South. I think we kind of know that this was in talks, and we knew this was going to be happening because West Florida, whether it was someone actually leaked it or West Florida wanted to get this information out there, I think was probably the case. It was probably the latter of the two. West Florida is going Division I, right? They're joining the UAC, excuse me, the USC. The UAC is a football-only member inside of that conference. And what does that leave the Gulf South? Well, it leaves the Gulf South, Delta State, West Alabama, Valdosta State. 3 perennial playoff contending type programs at the national level, but it's only 3, right? There's not a limit in Division II for how many teams that you need to have in a conference to get an at-large berth, as long as you fill out a schedule and play the correct number of games and have some in-region opponents and yada, yada, yada with outside the super region. But to have an AQ, there is a number. I believe it was 5 or 6, maybe 6 teams to get an AQ into the playoff. It's one of the two. Don't quote me. The GSC is not even close. They're like to the halfway point of that. And so it's trouble. It really is trouble down there. And this is what was posted by our good friend Chuck Bittner over there at d2football.com, if my computer wants to cooperate with me.
Gulf South is the new Pac-12.
Oh, man, you stole the line. I was going to say that, dude.
That's not bad. This is what was posted, and I won't expect you guys to be able to totally read it, but it is basically a whole statement, and it's a review of this meeting, and it talks about, I have the actual document pulled up a little bit bigger text on my screen, because, again, you guys won't be able to read this, but it basically says the committee considered a request from the Gulf South Conference to retain its automatic qualification for the 2026 season, despite falling below the minimum requirements due to conference roster attrition. But they granted the conference a 1-year waiver last year. That was when all the other things were shaking down with Conference Carolina and all that. But it basically goes through to say they're not doing that again. This is it for the Gulf South. They're not going to have further participation in the playoffs. The championship committee was not supportive of granting an exception for a conference that will only have half the members required for an AQ, and thus voted to deny the request. So, will we have Gulf South football in the playoffs in 2026? I would say very likely. Between one of those 3 teams, someone's going to make it in, if not multiple, if not all of them. But it will not be via the way of AQ, which I think is generally the news here.
So will they be operating almost as like independents this season? Or are they they're still playing for a conference championship, but it's only 3 teams?
That's a really good question, and I don't have the answer to that. I would imagine they would still have some type of conference champion just between the 3 of them. Now, how you work that out, and there's a lot of interesting ties and tiebreakers that may or may not come into effect in that situation, but my guess is that, yeah, at the end of the year, someone's going to be claiming that they are GSC football champs, right? Like, that looks good in a Twitter header and on a trophy case.
Well, all 3 of them could do it, technically.
Yeah. I mean, we saw it took out last year. Look at Valdosta State, who had almost seemingly no chances to get into the playoffs. They run the table the back half of the year, win the conference championship, and get in because of that. And we had other teams like West Florida, like other squads there that still made it. But currently, the GSC, they've got schools that do not sponsor football. 7 of them. I'm not going to go name all of them. None of them are seemingly going to be adding the sport in the near future. So that could have been one saving grace for this conference if you had a couple schools that were already within the conference competing in other sports that wanted to add back or initially add football to their official varsity sponsored sports. That does not seem to be the case. So then you look, guys, what can they do? Where can they go in terms of the Division II landscape? Because Edward Waters is the only D2 football team in Florida. Like that route is done. There's no one else down there that they can really look at. You look at maybe like Conference Carolinas, where a lot of those other teams went. You look at maybe the GAC, which geographically is not too far away. Pulling up, this is a little bit maybe of a dated map, but this is at least a decent map to give you an idea of some of the spread of these games. And you guys see in the bottom right here, do you see this cluster of like light blue teams?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the SIAC, which of course we were just talking about with some of these teams. You look at, there's Miles and Albany State and some of these squads. That geographically makes absolutely the most sense for these teams. Of course, though, that's an HBCU-specific conference. I don't necessarily believe that a Delta State, Valdosta, West Alabama, I don't know if they necessarily fit the criteria to join that. I don't know how that would work.
I think they're in a tough spot personally. Like, you brought up the other teams in their conference, right? Like, you're not going to penalize the basketball team and everything like that just because all these other schools like don't provide football teams, right? Like, look at college basketball. Like, Kobe, we know there's a school, Oakland University, right, in Michigan, and they don't have a football team. But like, if they did, like, none of the other teams in their conference in that Horizon League have a football team. So like, what would you do? So I think this is one of those where it's like, I agree with Tim. I think you kind of need to operate as like a Notre Dame or a UMass, or UMass just joined a conference. I think they just joined the MAC.
Yeah.
But Notre Dame and act as like an independent. And I think that's the only way you can do it. It's a penalized to the football guys, but at the end of the day, when you got basketball and you got all these other sports that seems to be a overall solid conference, there's no reason to necessarily like dip out of that conference.
Yeah.
Unless it's like genuinely affecting football. Like you said, if Valdosta State schedules a tough, what would just be scheduled, not even a non-conference schedule, a tough schedule, goes 8-3, they're probably getting in. Yeah. Right. So it's just like, that's just the reality of the beast, I guess. Or the nature of the beast. But you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I don't think you should necessarily like drastically switch up the entire school just because of that. But football is the moneymaker, and you got to figure that out.
This is the statement from the GSC here. I know a little bit of it gets cut off from the screen, so I'll cut to this so the people watching can kind of read that. But I'll give you the short of it, Drew. And I think you mentioned it. Like, football is the one being penalized. The conference has explored and continues to look at different types of solutions, traditional and non-traditional partnerships to support GSC football opportunities. Now, is that being an associate member in a different conference, as a football-only member of a different conference? If you want my opinion, guys, the absolute best outcome, the absolute best thing that could possibly come of this is the 3 teams from the Gulf South join up with 2 teams that are also in a little bit of geographic limbo. You see up here in the northwest corner, we get the Super Conference of Western Oregon, Central Washington, and then you come down here to West Alabama, Delta State, and Valdosta, and we can play ourselves some freaking football.
I was kind of having the same thing in mind.
We only need one more for the AQ.
On the other side of the country. What about the NE10?
Okay.
That is true. I think your idea was way better than mine. My idea is stupid. Yeah, my idea is really stupid. But I think when you talk about like NE10 football, that's a conference that's looking for a national powerhouse in there every year. So when you get a Valdosta State or something like that, and I know it doesn't make sense geographically, but Stanford's in the ACC. I think all bets are off at this point.
Yeah.
Only difference, just like we're obviously going to go, well, no shit. But Stanford's got some money. I mean,
Oh, that's the thing, dude. That's
They got Andrew Luck money.
Cal's got some money. USC's got some money. They can make those trips.
yeah.
I don't know if Valdosta State's funding that on a weekly basis.
Valdosta State, when you look back at Coach
We're going to
Jermaine
Western
Jackson,
Oregon.
who led them to the national championship, Drew. Coach Jackson said when they made that national championship run, they weren't even a fully funded football program. They didn't have 36 scholarships to give out to their guys. They were making it to the national championship. That was insane to hear from. And if at all this could potentially get worse, fellas, look at this. Here is the job posting for the commissioner of the Gulf South Conference on the NCAA job market currently, right now, out on this Monday night as we're recording this.
What are some of the qualifications, if you don't mind?
That's a good. I don't know. The text is too small. I can't read it right now. But as it currently stands, Tommy Sadler is the current interim commissioner. He started 5 days ago in that role as the interim commissioner for the Gulf South. The previous commissioner left after 12 years at the position. He saw West Florida out and he said, "I'm done with this shit. Get me out of here."
Oh my God.
He was like,
I mean,
I am not going down with this shit.
Hey, shout out Sadler. Shout out Mr. Sadler. Commish, hold it down there. We appreciate you and your efforts. Hopefully, in all seriousness, that these football teams can find somewhere to play for the foreseeable future. I have no idea what it's going to look like, but they're too damn good of football teams, and there's too many good people a part of those programs for it to not have a good resolution. Joining the show, it's the 2025 Harlon Hill winner. He's the first from an HBCU to earn the honor of being the top player in all of D2 football. The running back from Virginia Union is Curtis Allen. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. I'm glad to have you. Glad that you have me on your show today.
Hey, I appreciate you coming on here. I'm glad to have you on this show because we've talked about you a bunch over the course of the season. I feel like every media outlet that is worth a shit probably has, because you tore it up and you had an outstanding 2025 year. Now, we get to be on the back end of that. We get to do a little bit of reflecting, say, hey, this was an awesome year, and then we get to look forward for you because your football journey and career is not over, which is probably the most exciting part of all of this, man. But how special was that 2025 season with the guys down there? Because from an outside perspective, as someone who has seen Virginia Union now on the national stage the last couple of years, you guys have put together something special down there. Tell me how special this year was for that group.
It was real special. Just me winning Harlon Hill, and the teammates that I had, they've been there with me all 4 years. We've been through this for a long time, the fight, the struggle, just the O-line. They stayed down with me. Everybody just, played a big part in that, special year for me. So it was just, big and a blessing.
I love it. When they start calling you Bo Jackson down there?
They started calling me that my junior year.
You a baseball guy? Where did that come from?
Nah, it's just, the music we listen to, one of the artists, they be like saying Bo Jackson and whatnot and stuff like that. And they just, start calling me that. Because of football. Man,
if it fits, hey, why not, man? If it fits, I guess that'll roll, man. But I saw you got that trophy formally presented to you, I guess, at the spring game. Was that just yesterday, this weekend?
Yeah, it was just yesterday. Yes, sir.
There you go. So, I mean, obviously you've gone through this process. You've had the high of, like, getting the award and being around those people in your support group. But have to imagine that was a neat atmosphere. How special was that, of course? And then the atmosphere. What does that atmosphere feel like around this Panther team heading into the summer in 2026, man?
It's still amazing, man. Definitely. I got one of the running backs here at my house right now.
Okay.
A little room chilling. My little cousin, Raphael Tucker. Hopefully he's the next one up.
Okay.
Himself.
I love it, man. What is vibes are good around the football team down there? What does the spring game look like?
Oh yeah, definitely. Spring game was very live and lit, man. Love the support that the Panther family brings. All the alumni, everybody coming out to support them. You know what I'm saying? The team looks good, and I feel like they can do something special this year.
I love it. Pretty cool to get that trophy and kind of have that moment in front of everyone, I imagine.
Definitely. It's a surreal feeling. Little kids coming up to me after the game and during halftime and asking for pictures, saying I'm a legend around the city. You know what I'm saying? It's just really a blessing.
That varsity jacket is sweet, brother. With the red sleeves on there, that is
Coach got a special made for us.
I love that, dude. I love that. But let's talk a little bit, more about another award. I think this one by a lot of different outlets, maybe not talked about as much, certainly just as special. But that is the Black College Football Player of the Year you earned as well. Was that one on your radar at the beginning of this season? Is that something you were super familiar with? And how much of an honor was it to receive that as well? Because the Harlon Hill, of course, is going to be the one that people talk about. This is as much of, and probably a lot of people's opinion, as much of a legacy builder for you as that Harlon Hill trophy.
Honestly, no, it was not my radar. Neither was the Harlon Hill, honestly. Coming into the season, I really just wanted to get 2,000 yards. That was my main goal. Me and my trainer was just talking about all offseason. Was me getting 2,000 yards in 10 games. Was I able to do it? I was able to do it. But, being able to get the Blessed Black Player in college football, that was really a blessing just to receive it from Doug Williams and all the other guys out there. You know what I'm saying? It was just really a great opportunity and a blessing that I had.
Yeah, man. And this is, you talk about HBCU football. That is a sphere that within it are a ton of passionate fans, people that have someone involved with it. You get outside of that sphere, I think there's a lot of people that still have a lot to learn about the culture and the environment and the level of play that is HBCU football. How much do you feel of that kind of being someone that's going to bring, to be honest with you, a lot of eyes and ears to HBCU football, to teams like Virginia Union, to leagues like the CIAA? How much do you feel of that, and how much of a privilege is it to kind of be maybe the ambassador or the reason that someone tunes into an HBCU game?
That's really big and a blessing, honestly, because HBCUs really get overlooked because we're from HBCUs, and they feel like the talent level is not the same as some of the other schools that are bigger and better than our schools. But I feel like it's just about the person and the character that the team or the player has. So I feel like what I'm saying, me being able to showcase some light on the HBCU is just a big opportunity for all HBCUs and all the players that have opportunity.
Every football team in the country likes to talk about family. That's like the biggest buzzword in college athletics and college football specifically, because you got a just ridiculous amount of dudes in a locker room and on a team. When it comes to HBCU football, people want to talk about culture and environment. That game day environment, Saturdays at these places, and that's something we got to get to. Like, that's on my list. Like, we got to make sure we get down there for some of these matchups. Tried to do it earlier this year with the Labor Day Classic. It didn't pan out, so that's on our list. How do you put into words what separates that in your experience? What makes the HBCU environment different, and one that is, probably pretty spectacular down there?
I would just say, the fans, the band, the alumni, everything about, HBCU football. Like when it's that Saturday and you wake up, you just know it's HBCU football. You know what I'm saying? You hear the band outside, you hear people all lined up, cars everywhere, just see a whole bunch of people everywhere. It's just a great environment to be around and to be in.
At the end of the day, it's all the people, right? And the band like that, the band has got to be number one on the list. Like that's definitely
the people in the band they play some good music, man. They're live, always energized and lit, man. So I would just say, it's the whole environment of HBCU is just
so
great.
If we say again, hopefully this happens, we get to do a small school Saturday show, down there at Virginia Union or one of those CIAA squads. Say we're at VUU and we need we got to get some food at the desk. We got to have someone bring it over. What should I ask for? What do we need to go for right away to get on the desk that the guys need to get a taste of down there, like tailgating wise?
I would say the fried fish, man. The fried fish is the fried fish with fries. It's a must.
Okay,
that's time. I'm telling you this.
Yeah, when and if we get down there, it'll happen, brother. It'll happen. But let's talk a little bit of draft prep. You've put a lot on film. I think that's very, very safe to say at this point. What do you hope that teams and evaluators at the next level take away from some of your best stuff?
I would just say that they take away that I'm a hard runner, hard worker. You know what I'm saying? Relentless when it comes to running the football, not easy to bring down. Just an all-out guy that, they can play all four downs, hopefully, and, get you a special teams and, just make the team better.
Yeah. 100%. And for you, of course, you'd been on this roster. It wasn't like you just showed up out of nowhere in 2025. But for a lot of people who weren't familiar with this team and this conference, it's kind of exactly how it felt for other people trying to talk about this. And you made them be on notice, of course. But what aligned in the 2025 year? Of course, I'm sure you made strides in the offseason personally, but what other things, whether it was your team, the way you prepared, something about this schedule and momentum at the beginning of the year, what was it that made the stars align for you and kind of helped put together this massive 2025 production year for you?
I would just say, as you said, the team and how I prepared, man. Like from my junior year, once that season ended, I took like a couple weeks off, and since that, but it was at 2024 or 2025, the beginning of 2020. But since that January, I was working from January all the way to August, man, to training camp. So the preparation I put in for the 2025 season, it was a lot, honestly. So honestly, I wasn't really too shocked of what I did, but I was shocked to get all the awards that I had. But I definitely put in a lot of preparation, and the team was, the team was going to be the team because we always been good. We had players coming back, and I just feel like, the coaches, we all bought into what the coaches said, and we all believed in each other. So I just feel like, that's what it was.
Yeah, let's talk about that coaching staff a little bit. Coach Parker, this is a program that has become a mainstay on the national scene in terms of playoff contention ever since, he's kind of taken over this thing. What kind of poise and confidence does he bring to that locker room? Because he seems to have that in abundance.
He brings great poise and great, confidence to us, man. Every Saturday he gives us a nice little speech between him, Coach Ryland, Coach Han, them guys always hyping us up, make sure we straight, make sure we got everything. Just throughout the week and whatnot, him molding us and building us, into a family, a team, and, just his bonding all over together, even on the away games and whatnot, we getting bonding time in with each other. So, just everything that, he does just adds up to what Saturday brings.
One thing about Coach Parker, too, I feel like he keeps receipts, doesn't he?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I love that. I know you talked about, because you guys, again, like we're getting to a point now where Virginia Union in the playoff is an expectation, right? And that you could not say that for a very long time. And I think there were a lot of people that didn't really believe that. They've been forced to believe. He certainly remembers that, and you guys have played to that standard, which is pretty cool. Do you have had gotten any good pro comps in terms of like a running back, or you got one that you like to relate yourself to, or really is it just you one of one type deal?
I would say I'm like a Todd Gurley, Le'Veon Bell type of guy.
I got you. What is it about the game that screams Todd Gurley?
I would just say how explosive I am, my athletic ability. I like to, I hurdle sometime, it's just something like Todd Gurley.
Yeah.
Just how hard he was to bring down and just like his whole style of running and playing.
I love it, man. What's next for you in this this pro kind of training process?
Really just, getting back to my football training and hopefully getting my name called on draft night in these next couple of weeks.
Hell yeah, brother. What are they getting? What team, when they say that, whether it's the draft or you sign the UDFA deal, what are they getting?
You said what are they getting? Like as in by me? Like
yeah, man. What are they getting with you, man? That's on me.
I would say a hard worker, a great teammate, loyal guy, a relentless player. All of the above, really, just all around Jim. If you want to be honest, I feel like.
I love it, brother. Got to have that confidence. If you don't, league's not for you, right? I mean, that's college athletics, that's professional athletics. If you're a dude, you got to have the confidence, and if you don't, you're going to get weeded out, I think, pretty quickly at any level, a high level of athletics, man. But I appreciate you a ton.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
In Division III football, we got some fun stuff to talk about tonight, but I think, fellas, the first thing that we have to get on is this incredible story about a guy who went from kicking and punting at the D3 level at UW-Whitewater, and when I get a text from Jim Manzo, Pops, the other night, he's throwing against the Tigers. He's like, hey, Kobe, I think they just said something about this guy playing football at Whitewater, and he's throwing for the Marlins. That being Lake Backer, excuse me. This is a guy that is one of the most phenomenal stories in sports. Lake is a guy that thought he had a better chance to go pro with his kicking and punting ability coming out of high school, hence, of course, going to UW-Whitewater and doing that. He ended up joining the baseball team his sophomore year, goes on to have a fantastic year. He only appeared in 10 games, made 7 starts, but he was 7-1 with a 2.24 ERA and 46 strikeouts. Was playing American Legion back in Chicago. He decided to get on the team at UW-Whitewater. Again, this is after already being enrolled in school for a year. He went on to the Northwoods League there in Wisconsin, which is kind of like that college summer league type situation, if you guys are familiar, and then was drafted by the Padres in the 5th round of the 2016 MLB draft. He spent 9 years in the minors and didn't debut in the show until he was already 29 years old. This is a story about perseverance, about sticking it through, and about changing, right? Picking a different path and finding a way in top-level athletics. So we are now huge fans of Lake Bachar because that story is phenomenal.
Yeah, you got to cue up the Moneyball soundtrack for this one. If you guys haven't heard the songs from Moneyball, excellent instrumental work being done there. How can you not be romantic about baseball? I mean, this is just such a cool story. I might have to pick him up on my fantasy team if I'm being honest. This guy's a strikeout specialist. He's middle relief. Might have opportunities to get some wins here and there on a pretty solid ball club, boasting over a 12 K per 9, which is like really, really good. And his whip is only 1 right now as well. So this is a guy, he's a high impact player. He's in high leverage situations. And hey, we love the D3 guys. Yep. This is what we're here for.
There he is, man. This. Seeing one through the uprights right there. Love that.
Hey, if you're good enough, they'll find you anywhere. We always say it. Even it doesn't matter what sport. It doesn't matter. And it shows right here.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah, I always think thank you for moving me over there. Sorry. First of all, Jimmy, the John Daly cut out in the background.
Yes.
It's my prized possession.
That thing is fantastic.
It's unbelievable. I could just hang out with John Daly all day.
Does that just live in your house, or what is it? Okay.
One of the first things I wake up, I turn my lights on. John Daly's right there.
John Daly is his sleep paralysis demon.
No, but luckily there's a wall blocking off John Daly. It's not like he's gonna start like seeing me in my dreams and everything like that. Yeah.
I kind of want one of Gavin. And my
I could use one of those.
Anyway, not to make a mockery of this. Rightfully so. Not a huge baseball guy. Never don't know anything about how any of this works. However, whenever there's a Division III athlete, especially in Division III football, that makes it to any sort of professional sport, you got to freaking love it. And I think this is a great example of. We talked about why D3 last week. We put out a great post. Kobe did a great job on that about why Division III is so special to us. And I think this is a great example of kind of what I said of being a well-rounded individual, because let's say he ends up going to wherever. Let's say he went to the Badgers and he just played football and he just kicked, right? Probably wouldn't have the opportunity to play baseball, and maybe wouldn't have had the opportunity to be an MLB pitcher. And maybe he would have just played baseball elsewhere. Obviously, he was that good to do that.
Fantastic point, though. Yeah.
It's just a great story of why D3 still works and why D3 is so important, is to get opportunities. Obviously, you want to play your sport. Obviously, you want to get a meaningful degree. But being able to be diverse and be well-rounded and have all these different opportunities. Like, I knew a bunch of guys that were my teammates that went and played baseball. Many times they would end up picking a sport between football or basketball or track or whatever the case is. But that's just one of the things that makes small school football so cool, is you get to kind of experience these different things, and also maybe play in the MLB one day.
I love that. I actually think that's a fantastic point. This is a guy, too, that I didn't realize until checking out this story. Shout out fangraphs.com, going through and do a little bit of background on our guy Lake here. He had a good leg, it says here. An all-conference performer. He had 3 field goals in the 2014 NCAA D3 championship game. That was the 43-34 win over Mount Union. He had 9 points in the national championship. This is not a guy that just, he checked the box of D3 football player and sat on the bench for 4 or 5 years. This was a real contributor on a national champion type contender program, who then went on to excel in something totally different, which is so sweet.
Imagine if he ever gets into a spot where he's like in the World Series and he wins a World Series. How many people in the world could ever say they D3 national champion in World Series? D3
Probably
football
none.
champion in World Series. No one. He would be 1 in 8 billion. Understand that on a macro level here. Let's really think about this.
Why don't you ask John? Ask John if anyone else has done that.
There's no chance.
I'm gonna ask ChatGPT.
Sorry. John, no. He said no.
Yeah, ask John. I'm gonna ask ChatGPT real quick.
That's incredible. That's a good point, though. Like, seriously, those are two totally different achievements and accomplishments. Of course, team accomplishments, too, that are so rare in their own right that a select few even can say that they've been a part of. And then to experience both would be ridiculous. Not sure if Miami is quite to that level. Jimmy, you would know a little better than me. I don't think that they're...
Well, I will say this. The thing about baseball, and especially with middle relief pitchers and guys that can get you high leverage outs, the trade deadline, he could go to a World Series contender like this. You have no idea. Okay. If he keeps up this strikeout rate and he keeps his whip low and he keeps like getting holds, that's a baseball stat. And when you like have do really good in like the 7th or the 8th inning, as
yep,
a pitcher,
when you come in, yep,
close the game out, yep, exactly. And those guys are super valuable at the trade deadline. So just remember that.
Okay,
he could go to like the Yankees or the Dodgers or something. You have no idea.
Yeah,
he totally. We don't have to come back and clip this, by the way. There's a very good chance
I love
it could happen.
That would be awesome. Let's this is a great segue. Right, hey, let's stay right in the baseball world. Let's stay right in the baseball world, fellas. Let's go down to D3 baseball. D3 baseball is on the run of a freaking lifetime right now. There is so much crazy shit happening in D3 baseball that we have to talk about it. We're not a baseball program. We would be remiss if we missed out on talking about D3 baseball this week. It starts down in Illinois with the Spartans down there at Aurora, I do believe is the mascot. This is a look at the outfield. Look at left center. What the hell is going on in Aurora? And we got guys throwing BP, not even phased, that there are potentially 20-foot flames beyond the left field fence.
My favorite part about this tweet is there's no context.
Yeah, there's no caption.
It's like, all right, hey, just our seasonal controlled burn here in Aurora, Illinois, or whatever. Or, hey, our team's about to die due to flames. However, this is a wild, like, let's say this is like a controlled burn.
Yeah.
This is a wild thing to do next to a turfed baseball field because that is a very expensive F up. Should you, right, catch one little ember that goes into the, but yeah, this is like, I love Hawkeye Phil's tweet right next to that.
Yeah. Someone pimps one over left field, home run. Who's going to get the ball? Who's fetching today at practice at BP?
Probably whoever's playing right field's probably. I know that's where they usually put the bad baseball players because that's where I played. So it's probably.
How about I know someone had a picture. How about Buddy here peeking over the fence out there?
No, yeah, I was looking at that too. That's funny, bro.
Talk about a distraction, though. That I probably wouldn't be getting a lot done during that day.
I mean, I have never seen that, and it gets even better because you're like, okay, how did these guys follow that up? Big distraction. Safe to say, like, no one was hurt in this. There were no injuries. Take a look at how Aurora did in the ensuing series, boys. I think it is very safe to say, if X wants to load for me, the bats were hot when it came to playing that next series for the Spartans.
God, I love that.
Oh, yeah.
They scored 29 runs in 2 games.
They dipping their bats in the fire and then just going up to the plate. Just
I mean, we're talking straight banana ball with the Spartans.
Yeah, that's crazy. Hey, by the way, I got to give a shout out to my buddy Tyler Pricing, Aurora baseball alum. You'd get a kick out of this story. I got to let him know. Yeah.
Shout out the boys down in Aurora. We might have to get one of them on the show just to explain what the hell is happening in left field.
Yeah, that's bonkers.
You got to ask him if it's like a regular, this is like an occasional, like this is a seasonal thing. Like, oh, yeah.
Because they're not phased.
No, I know. That's why I think it's a seasonal burn. And probably just Farmer John, just like, yeah, seasonal burn or whatever. It wouldn't surprise me if this is directly next to a cornfield.
Agreed.
Or just some sort of brush pile.
Agreed. And if that you thought was potentially the craziest D3 baseball story from this week, you would be poorly mistaken, boys. Take a look here at what was going on with this Oberlin baseball team. This is the tweet that I think a lot of people saw. This had been sent around, but it's from Oberlin. It says, the bus got slammed into by an Amish carriage horse on our way to a conference doubleheader. Hashtag YD3. Hashtag you can't make this up. Hashtag grittiest horse ever.
Yeah. I mean, I will say firsthand, depending on where you're driving throughout the Midwest, you have these little pockets where there are large masses of Amish communities. And I, for one, I see a horse and carriage every single day on my drive up to Lake Holcomb,
Really?
through 12. Every single day. Every single day. Been working up there. Go Chieftains, by the way. But yeah, I've been seeing Amish people there and back. I every time, no matter what.
Shout out
I
the
will
Amish.
always see one. I see one every time. They're out there. You gotta be careful. You gotta be careful.
Okay, so the next video we're going to throw out, I don't usually throw this out, viewer discretion for the next video. We do actually have, I'm getting told here live that we do have footage of the actual crash. Viewer discretion because you do kind of see and hear. I'm going to try and play the sound of the crash. No major injuries occurred. Believe the horses and the people involved were all okay. This is the actual video that we have seen here from the crash. Fellas, that is outrageous. I need to go find the actual screen grab, but you get a very good look here at just how this played out with this horse and buggy. There it is. There's your really good look right there. Horse and buggy, what allegedly happened according to the story, some type of loud noise or distraction. One of the horses in kind of the tandem got totally flustered and totally veered off course and thankfully went into the side of the bus as opposed to the front of the bus, which certainly would have caused some probably fatalities or some of those things. But no one was hurt. That is the look right there. Who has the mind to get a phone out and be recording to have this happen? Kudos to them on this bus.
Is the horse okay?
Yeah.
From what I read, the horses were all right.
Oh, thank God.
Hashtag grittiest horse ever.
Yeah, that's a gritty horse.
Yeah, that is a gritty horse.
I mean, that is incredible. Take a look. I have the full story linked there for you guys to take a look at. But I do have one more piece of really good evidence and really good investigative journalism to add to this groundbreaking story that we're talking about here. Jimmy, you talked about it. There's a lot of places in the Midwest, especially, that are no strangers to the Amish. But do these communities, do they bring the Amish in and welcome them as some of their own? Do they ostracize them? This is what Oberlin is doing with their Amish community. I don't know if you guys can read that. It says horse and buggy parking only. This is obviously at like a well-traveled spot. Look at all the vehicles around here. Shout out Oberlin. Shout out Ohio, looking out for the Amish and making sure that the horses and the buggies get to where they need to be, hopefully without any more bus interactions and collisions.
That is some culturally responsive practices right there. That is very responsible. That's what a lot of universities are doing nowadays.
Can you imagine parking your horse and buggy next to like a Honda or a Subaru?
Yeah, hey, you got to be inclusive.
It's Walmart. It's Walmart.
What's the fine for parking in horse and buggy parking? Is there a fine for this?
I think you have to go work in the bakery for like a week.
There is a fantastic. I don't know if it's Amish. What's the other one? What's the one that's a little more chill?
I don't know. I know the Amish bakery, though, and then Amish furniture. They excel at that stuff. And barn building. I mean, they are top-notch.
Minutemen? Isn't that what it is?
I can't say I've heard of that, man.
That's a movie from Disney back in the day. I can't wait. Yeah, I can't remember. But there is a fantastic Amish bakery in Iowa City that you almost try eventually. But it's that community, man, they're diehard. They're ride or die. They are not using that technology. They ain't doing it.
So from the story here, the bus made collision and then had to reverse about 100 feet to get back to the point of the crash, which is when they realized that it was indeed a horse and buggy. And of course, they had got out, make sure everyone was okay. This had to be quite the commotion down there.
I'm just glad the horse is okay.
I'm also glad everyone, T's and P's to everyone involved in this. What a time. D3 baseball has never been this ridiculously thrilling.
Do we know how Oberlin baseball followed this up? Like, were they coming home from
against Worcester? They split. They went 1-1 against Worcester.
Okay.
So they did not have the Aurora effect. So the teams impacted by ridiculous shit went 3-1 following. Pretty good.
I would like half of the teams in the country to burn a field next to their stadium and half of the teams to not, and then like compare notes to see like, did this help? Did this not? There's just probably some case studies that probably could be done to see that, but
that is what we call the scientific process.
One half should light their field on fire and one should just get into slight fender benders with Amish buggies.
Yes, just making sure that everyone is making it out of those instances. But let's go over talk back football here. Go to your favorite conference, the WIAC, coming to Friday Night Lights here. We'll take a peek. This is a tweet from the man Goldberg, who's a good follow for D3 football people, especially those who really enjoy WIAC football. There it is, fellas, the updated one. This game, Oshkosh playing Whitewater, moved from Saturday the 31st to Friday night, October on the 30th. We are assuming a Friday night game. The time technically is TBD, which is to be determined. But we're going to go ahead and assume that this military appreciation game is going to be on a Friday night inside of Perkins Stadium there at UW Whitewater. Have you guys played in any Friday night games, formerly playing in the WIAC?
No, but I know Oshkosh did quite a bit. I think they've done this before. Like this exact matchup, I think.
Agreed.
Whitewater and Oshkosh have played Friday nights. We never did play Friday night. Our athletic director actually has her shit together. So yeah, I never had to do any of that.
Hold on.
I think I want to say we played Carroll on a Friday night like 2 years ago at Stout, and it did not go very well for us. But I want to say that was a Friday, but that wasn't technically a WIAC game though.
So to the credit of the athletic department at Whitewater, seemingly their hands were absolutely tied. You can see here in the tweet that the 31st is the WIAC cross-country meet, and the course would reportedly impact parking for Perkins Stadium. So now it's going to coincide with the second week of the Wisconsin High School Football Playoff. So that WIAC cross-country meet, which of course includes all of the teams inside of the WIAC, a lot more foot traffic and things. I just... Don't get me wrong, I find it really, really weird that the football event is the one that, is going to get moved, especially at a place like Whitewater with the history and tradition and fan base and those things. But I'm just glad that we're making it all happen. That allegedly here from our guy Goldberg is what's going on, and you can blame the WIAC cross-country meet. What this does open up is a really cool opportunity for people in that area, in the Wisconsin area, like myself now being down here in Madison, to catch some football on a Friday night potentially, and then another game on a Saturday. We'll see if we can swing something fun that weekend, maybe.
Actually, shout out athletic director. We love everything you do. You're great. You're great at your job. We love what you do. However, I just got I don't understand how this can happen. Like, I just don't get how the best league in the country, there's the chance that we're going to move the game. Now, don't get me wrong. Friday nights, sick. I love it. Like, I love, like, there's that nostalgia. There's that charm of showing up late to a game.
Sure.
Like, I love all that stuff. As a player, I hated playing Saturday night games. I played plenty of those. But I think a Friday night game actually would be kind of sweet because, it's like high school when you go to class, there's buzz around the building, and then you go play the game. However, it's just, it gives whoever Oshkosh or Whitewater is going to play next gives Oshkosh an extra day to rest up. And so if I'm the next team, I'm like, well, shoot, we played on Saturday, they played on Sunday. Now, is that big enough deal? I don't think so. But still, it's like, how do you like, if the game was originally scheduled for October 31st, right? We were going to have a Halloween game. It was going to be awesome.
We also are getting robbed of that. It's a good point.
Right. We could have had a Halloween game, but how did we originally schedule this and then move that? Like, either, hey, great, like, we're just going to start it at Friday night because we know that game is here, or that meet is here. I just don't get how you screw that up. But I'm not an athletic director, never been, never desire to be, but feels like this is kind of an oopy-doop. But maybe Goldberg can reply to this thing and say, like, does this happen a lot in Whitewater?
Yeah, clear the air. We might need it. And the other question I had for you guys, talking about the WIAC specifically, the JV schedule. How many teams in the WIAC have JV teams?
I think all of them.
I think they all do.
Is it all of them?
They all do. So,
with your JV teams, are they typically playing on a Thursday or a Friday?
Sunday.
They play Sundays.
Typically, it's always this. So when I was at River Falls, we always played Stout, Eau Claire, and maybe gosh, I'm trying to think. I can't. And then we tried to get like a Bethel in there at one point. I think they got a little banged up.
But it was usually Sundays, huh?
But it's always Sundays.
Okay. I didn't know where that fit in because I know people had talked about some midweek, sometimes having like a midweek JV game. I didn't know how that would maybe impact it, but that was just a thought of mine.
Coaching staffs always typically handle it differently. For example, like when I was at Simpson, our head coach always stayed behind and always like dealt with the next game. And so the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and so there was truly like a JV staff. Like there was a JV head coach, there was a JV offensive coordinator, JV defensive coordinator. And so there was like almost like the staff was the same, of course, but like our offensive line coach was the coordinator, like our defensive backs coach and special teams coordinator was the head coach. And so there was that. But then with River Falls, everybody was still like, we treated it like a game. Like we treated it like it was a Saturday game, except our offensive coordinator just really worried about the game plan. And then our coach Walker would call the JV plays. Like we always wanted him, like, we always wanted to be involved. Like
That's cool.
Coach Walker always wanted to be involved with that and never be like, it's JV, it's not a big deal. But and we had some wars with Stout back in the day.
That's awesome.
Always beat him.
That's awesome.
Always beat him.
That's awesome. But anyways, I'm excited for what this potentially opens up. And again, if we can potentially make a trip out to Perkins, that's one of the spots on our list that we definitely need to get to at some point. Hopefully that is in 2026 and we can make that happen because that Oshkosh game is going to be jumping considering the history of what that matchup has been like. But let's finish it off, fellas. Let's talk about a guy, another WIAC guy, River Falls guy in Blake Rohrer, who of course had committed to UMass and now he ends up at Duke. Seth, they're saying he was ducking the Maction. They said he wasn't ready for Maction. That's just what they're saying online. That's what they're saying on the interwebs, is that Blake Rohrer was not ready for midweek Maction. What do you have to say to that?
Well, first of all, I'd like to know who is saying that, but
it's what they're saying.
Yeah. Listen.
Stumped him.
Listen. I think Blake, and now I'm going to say no comment to certain things, but I'm not going to say no comment to some things. Blake wanted to go play ball. Okay. He didn't want to go play. He didn't want to go play no JV football over there in UMass. Okay. He wanted to play in front of 30. He wanted to play in front of 60,000 people. Okay. He didn't want to play in front of, he'd play it more. If he came back to River Falls for another year, he'd play in front of more people probably. Definitely would win more games. And so listen, you know, it's like, hey, you got a shot to go play in the ACC. You're going to go do it. And again, no shade to UMass whatsoever. I don't know how the deal went down. I don't know how the decommitment went. Like, I'm just happy for Blake. Blake, here's the thing. Blake has that it factor to him of just being a gritty dog. Like that's the only way that I can put it. And he may not be like the fastest dude in that receiver room. He may not be the tallest. He might not go against one DB that he is faster than all year. But he is a freaking playmaker. He's a dude. I love that dude. And he's gonna have a journey now to not only like get in the rotation, but try to start. Like it's not gonna be easy. Like it's gonna be difficult, especially playing receiver in the ACC. Like that's a dang good conference.
Absolutely.
And so
and Duke is no longer the doormat of that conference either. I think that's definitely worth noting too. This is not your dad's Duke football team.
No, they were. I mean, they were like right there for. I mean, they were in the ACC championship last year. Now, granted, the ACC was not loaded, other than Miami.
That's still a power conference, though.
It's still a power conference, and you play a really tough competition every week. Like Florida State and Clemson, and blanking on some of the other ones, but SMU is starting to be really good with some of their NIL deals. But no, I'm pumped. I'm freaking pumped for Blake. I'm juiced for him. Very excited for him. Shout out our guy Brian BG for the cut up here. Does a lot of those highlight cut ups to the small school guys that I always appreciate. But I think you said it, man. Like he doesn't. There's a lot of good things to like about him and the intangibles. There are some tangibles to definitely like about him in some certain areas. It'll be very interesting to see how he's utilized. Right, he definitely was marketed. Like you're watching the tape here. Like he is not an inline tight end. Like was he utilized in the tight end manner sometimes for this River Falls team potentially? But you split this guy out. He does a lot of different things now. How complex was that route tree playing for a River Falls offense?
Yeah, probably not the craziest thing in the world given that tempo and trying to just force that ball down the field. But this is a guy that obviously is going to devote himself and learn those things and hopefully get himself in with a great group of guys that knows their stuff, a coach that can take some of that raw talent and mold them into someone that becomes a much more polished route runner and piece of that offensive passing game. So again, all signs point to this is a great pickup for this Duke team and obviously a great next step for Mr. Rohrer.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see if he gets the other year. I know that there's a lot of rule changes and a lot of things that are going around in Division I right now.
There's the play.
Right. Oh yeah, this was freaking. I pulled my hamstring on the freaking way down there. However, it'd be interested to see if he gets another year because I know there's a lot of people out there that are getting promised another year because the Division III to Division I rule because of the redshirt situations.
Yeah,
you might be able to, I don't know Blake's situation full cut, but I'm excited for him nonetheless. Like going to a P4 school, like I just had the opportunity to go down to Texas Tech and Kentucky to go around with some of their coaches and that is a different world. And I'm so excited that he gets to experience that. If he has 100 catches or no catches, like he's going to get a sweet opportunity and hopefully have a shot to potentially play more football down the line.
100%, man. I love it. Sweet, fellas. I think that's all I got for you tonight.
Rock River Invitational is only 47 days out, by the way, too. Very prestigious event coming up here in the short future.
What is that?
Oh, you'll know when you see it. 47 days. 47 days away. You'll know when you see it.
Is this guy talking golf to close out the segment?
We talked baseball. We talked football. It is golf. It is, but it's a very prestigious event.
Joining the show, we got a chance to see this guy in person. Also got a chance to see him call his own shot in the fourth quarter against Duluth. He made some big plays this year for the Mavs in Minnesota State. Also might be the king of NIL in Division II. I don't think that's an understatement to say that here. It's the Minnesota State wide receiver, TreShawn Watson. What's going on, brother?
Not much, man. How are you?
Dude, pumped to get you on here. And have to imagine, do you remember what I'm talking about? Duluth game? We were walking down the sideline.
I remember.
Yeah, you come over. I don't remember the exact verbiage, but it was something along the lines of like y'all finna see something? Like y'all want to see something right now? And then, boom, 60-yard tud down the left sideline, tie the game up. That was awesome. How many times you call your own shot and do that?
A decent amount. When I know, when I know the game plan and I know what kind of plays we got in there, what kind of coverage they're kind of getting into, I'll be able to kind of within a drive be able to know if I'm going to get a deep shot or not. So I remember seeing you guys and things weren't really going our way, and I remember looking at y'all and I was like, yeah, hey, dude, don't get comfortable with the score, just wait on it. Yeah.
I took, for the record, it didn't end up being the right pick, but I took the Mavs in that one. I had a streak of picking wrong on our site visits for the first couple of trips, but I felt confident about that group. You guys go on to have a good season. But you talk about football in the Northern Sun, man. It's about as tough and gritty as it gets. Of course, geographically has a lot to say with that. Does that scare away some wide receivers? And as in the receiver room on the outside, how does a mindset come into that room where you have to be very unselfish, very selfless at times, given the style of play of the teams up in that region?
Yeah, absolutely. It's super run heavy, but I'm a true believer in just having the run open up the pass. I think football is very complementary to one another, and those things complement each other very well. And it wasn't really anything I was worried about going in transferring to Minnesota State. It was obviously I thought about it, and knowing that it's not going to be some high air raid team.
Sure.
But I knew, being that kind of maybe pro style offense, a lot of RPO, they do run the ball a lot there at Minnesota State. I knew I was going to be able to get my shots, and going in as a feature receiver, just being able to also kind of spread my wings and get into the role of blocking, because that's also super important for the next level, So yeah. I kind of looked at it as it was going to be able to hit all the boxes that I wanted to becoming a better player. And it would teach me not only just blocking in the run game, but also when I do get my opportunity of getting those shots that I'm going to make them when they come.
Absolutely, man. And now, of course, you fast forward, injury sidelines you for kind of the back half of that 2025 season. As someone who has definitely gone through that multiple times, oftentimes the really tough part is at the very beginning, where you feel almost helpless because there's not a whole lot you can do to get back up and get rolling right away. It's really nice when you have objectives laid out in front of you. Like, okay, this is what's next. I can work towards these very finite goals. At the very beginning, it's tough. How did you navigate that, bounce back from that, especially when progress maybe in that first month or so is probably really slow to start?
Yeah, it's just kind of just having that mindset of on understanding a bigger picture, when things are slow. And for me, it was just kind of just putting my head down and controlling what I can control. And that's kind of just pretty much what it is keeping my faith in Jesus Christ and understanding that things are, they are bigger than football. And I'm just super blessed to even be out there and kind of, have my time that I did, but just kind of staying level headed and just understanding that like all you really can do is control the controllables.
100%, man. Now that mindset, that attitude obviously is going to benefit you in so many other phases of life. We're getting pretty back to close to 100% though, I have to imagine.
Yes, 100%.
Love that. Love that. What have you learned throughout that rehab process, maybe about yourself, the way that you take care of your body, you prepare?
Yeah, it was a true testimony, just to the faith. And just, I think, there's a blessing in everything that happens. And I do believe everything happens for a reason. And just was able to learn, like I said, a lot about my body, health wise, and things, even from the eating standpoint of putting in my body that would help me out, and the other just kind of bumps and bruises that I had, because you don't ever really have the time, when you're playing the sport of football, because it's kind of year-round training. You never really get the time to kind of work out those other little bumps and bruises that you may have and things like that. So just being able to learn how my body reacts to certain exercises, stretches, things like that was also good. But just like it was more of a mental game that I was kind of learning. Obviously, things were going super good, and it was like 100 to 0 kind of pretty quick. But it was how am I going to hold my faith and react to that was honestly the biggest kind of learning curve right there, and what I think is honestly going to help me in the future.
Oh, love that. Absolutely think you're right on the right track there. I want to pivot, though, and talk some NIL. I kind of alluded to it, and I remember, very vividly scrolling through, seeing this right here pop up on the feed, and you're like, okay, yeah, some people have their little NIL deals. Whoa, and here we go. This guy is ripping around, and immediately in my head, I'm like, this is not what people associate with NIL at the Division II level. And you're a guy that has absolutely been kind of a trailblazer in this space at the D2 level when it comes to NIL and working with these different kind of local and national brands. Of course, that one right in Mankato. But for me, it's just, it was so new. Everything at this level is so new. How and when did you decide that was something you really wanted to look into and try and establish yourself with?
Yeah, absolutely. The NIL part, obviously growing within, the last half of a decade, was kind of something I always thought, why not? If you're going to go there and, you're going to go play ball and things like that and be in college, why not make an extra few dollars? And on top of that, you kind of get connected with the community, So it was a good thing to get, in connection with the youth athletes, all the local businesses and things like that. So it kind of was something of the more I spent the time after I transferred, the more time I spent at Minnesota State, and also it's the area you're in. Minnesota State, the community over there in Mankato, they want to help their athletes. They really do. They want to see them thrive and be able to be successful in the community and kind of learn those kind of things.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I think that's an underappreciated part of what this does, because it allows you to open doors to interacting with a lot of people that maybe otherwise you would have never crossed paths with in that community. Right now, a lot of your stuff does stem from a lot of those local brands, whether it was the Mankato Motors, some of these other deals, even some of the franchises that have those local flavor, people that you are around in that community. That's a really neat way of getting involved in a lot of ways. We had posted some numbers on Open Doors. I know you and I had messaged a little bit about it, and everyone sees those numbers because those are the averages for people at these levels, D2, D3, and NAIA, and they just go ahead and think that, man, there's no money for these athletes, that people at these levels have no opportunity to go out and get a bag and do these things in the right way without selling out and losing their identity and going with these different companies. Can you pull back the curtain a little bit? Tell me about what it means to be involved in NIL and potentially how much you're able to earn in your time at Minnesota State.
Yeah. I'll kind of hit the first part a little more than the second part.
That's totally okay. Whatever you want to share, I want to.
Yeah, just being, like I said, being involved in NIL, like I said, I think it's super important. Just being able to grow your kind of portfolio and your brand, because ultimately, like NIL and coming in, because I was kind of going into college at the time that it was kind of starting. I've been in college for a while now, but it kind of it shapes your identity, in a way, but also like gives you that, like I said, that community and that connection. And I think it's like super important for athletes, like I said, to be able to just kind of maximize their ability and their portfolio while they're there, because not only are they just ball players, and it goes way beyond being a ball player, but like you said, these connections. I mean, I talked to, probably 5 to 6 owners, maybe even more, to this day, that I worked with. Like I said, you have the Buffalo Wild Wings up and things like that. I still talk to them, talk to Maverick Sports Girl, talk to Bunks. I talk to Paul all the time, Bunks Card Corner and Mankato Motors. I talked to all those guys. I just got done talking to a GM there, his birthday the other day. And, so it's like the connection and the things that you both can um, kind of profit off of is super important to me. And like I said, it's one, it's a community thing, but two, like I said, you guys both can profit off these things, and it's something cool to do, get the community talking. And then more on like the money side of things. Each year it actually went up pretty drastically within the 3 years that I was there. The first year it was it was a couple thousand.
Okay.
The first year I was there, I'll throw that out there. And
Which a
then
lot of
the second
people,
year,
starting out, like that would be, they would take that in a heartbeat, right? People at this level. And that's something where, again, realistic, that's attainable. You have to really go forth and put some effort into solidifying that, though. It's not, I have to imagine, I can't speak on your experience, but I have to imagine that you were going to be the one that initiated some of these first conversations.
100%, yeah. And also, like I said, people have talked to me about, hey, at the D2 level, how does it work with NIL? Because a lot of times, at the Division 1 level, maybe Power 4 more so, they're kind of going to them,
Yes.
and you got to take that stuff, because it's not just a one-way street, it's a two-way, and you kind of got to get solidified and get your portfolio going, and then people reach out to you. Like for me, I told a lot of guys on the team, that weren't really sure of how to do it or how to go about it. Like you have to put that work in yourself, go out there, be in the community, volunteer, do those things, and then their opportunities are going to come. Like for me, like I said, the first year was really just getting in the community, getting to know all the, local business owners and things like that of that sort. And then the next year, like I said, it went from, a few thousand, and then it went up closer, to that, 5-figure mark, and then a little bit above that, and then the middle to high range 5-figure mark in my third year there is really successful, and it is possible for any level, and there's guys that I know. I got a lot of buddies that play Division 1 football,
Yeah,
still coming from a D1 school, and even Power 4 schools, and they're like, man, like you're making more money than me. But like I said, it's also putting the work in, being able to reach out to those local business owners, and just even going like a Instagram DM or things like that, sending emails to CEOs or whatnot. And it does take time on your end, but once you get to that point where you kind of solidify and you up your profile to a certain point, then they want to start reaching out to you and kind of getting in contact and doing those kind of brand deals.
Hey, salute to you, man, because I think what's important about that, like the actual figure is important, but maybe not for the reasons that some people assume. I don't think the number in terms of how much you made is necessarily important, but I think what it says is very important about the state of college athletics, and that there is value in small school athletes. There's value in people like you that, yes, perform very well on Saturdays and do that very proudly, wearing the logo on the front and representing the name on the back, of course, doing a little bit of both, but also being out in the community, making those connections. There's value in all of those things. People see that and they're starting to appreciate it. I think that's what's really important about that. So that's really the reason I wanted you to share, is like to ruin this conception, this misconception that there is not value, or that people don't see value, if that makes sense, at these levels. So I love the fact that you've been able to do that. What do you think, in your opinion, stops most athletes at these levels, D2, D3, NAIA, from even starting and taking that first step into that new landscape?
As in like what stops them from being able to kind of take everything that they can with the NIL side?
Yeah, I think like maybe taking that leap. For you, some people are more comfortable posting on social and going and doing these interaction type events, other deals. What do you think stops people from making that quote unquote leap and being potentially judged by others for trying to chase a bag or go, turn quick profit type of deal?
Right. Yeah. 100%. You see it all the time. Locker room talk, you name it. I hear it all over, of just guys that are afraid to one get denied when it comes to things like that, because
Sure.
they may feel like maybe like the school that they're at, or maybe the community, they're not really in the community enough. So I think it's self-doubt is really where it all starts, because once you get to that confidence, because I actually remember, I'm not going to speak on it, but I actually printed off kind of an addendum and my own kind of contract that I wanted to work with this business. Now, this is my first year going into the whole NIL world, and I actually went into kind of the CEO of this business, and I talked to pretty much all the top employees there, and I kind of just introduced myself and told them what I was looking to do and how I wanted to collaborate with them. And they were just all super shocked and stunned, because they never had an athlete come in and actually sit there, shake all their hands, get to know them, and ask them, do you want to partner with me on this? This is where you can benefit, this is where I can benefit. And then we can also do a super cool thing for the community on top of all of it.
Sure.
So I think, the self-doubt is the first hump people got to get over. They have to have the confidence, and they have to have the will, because I get it. You're an athlete, you're a student athlete, and you got a lot of homework, you got a lot of stuff. There's a lot
Sure.
of things, you don't have much time, but taking that time out of your day and finding that time management to fit that in there, to go and talk to these, local businesses and things like that, is what's going to give you over the hump, is kind of putting in that extra work in order to, like I said, get into the community and know these people, so you can get the ball rolling on that.
I love it. Take initiative, right? I mean, that's what it's about. Take initiative, never know unless you try, and don't be afraid to fail, man. That's the thing that now, and we're still, I think we're pretty young in terms of like broad spectrum of life, but everyone's so afraid to fail, because if you fail, it's posted everywhere, it's magnified, and it's for everyone to see. It hasn't always been that way, but that's the way it is now, and it's sometimes really tough for people to get over, because failure, especially in the eyes of others, is a tough thing to swallow. But let's go back talking some ball. I appreciate you sharing all that, though, because I think that's really important stuff. What has the draft prep process looked like for you, and how do you prepare now for the Pro Day Wednesday back in Mankato, which is really special that you're able to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. The process obviously was different with having an injury, so I had to stay in Mankato obviously till graduation, and then I actually had left and came back home to Chicago. So I'm downtown Chicago doing my PT, because I was going to go to Florida. I would have been in Pensacola, Florida, but instead I came back home, went downtown Chicago to where I'm doing also PT and training in Chicago, just getting healthy. And so that's kind of been the consistent part of this pre-draft. And then I went to Northwestern a couple weeks ago. I went to their pro day, shake hands, talk to scouts, interview and things like that. Still getting in front of these scouts and showing them that I'm getting healthy, because that's also super important to do. And then I went to the Bears local day last week, which is super good to get, and talk and get in front of Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson and all the rest of the staff. It was super good. And, them being able to see me like go out there and jog and catch balls and kind of stretch and stuff, showing that I'm still getting healthy and that this is nowhere near the end of my career, And then, like I said, I got on the 15th. I had my own pro day up at Minnesota State. So yeah, it's kind of been those things, and having scouts there and talking to them and talk to a couple teams about being able to make it out there, because it's late in the process, right? So a lot of them are doing, their draft tables and draft meetings, and they're on their draft boards and all that stuff. So being able to get some of them out there is super big blessing, because they are super busy at this time of year, with it being about 2 weeks away from, the draft. So.
Yeah, I mean, being top of mind is probably one of the most important things for a guy that, coming from a smaller school. So just you making and showing face, making appearances at those things and being able to interact with them, because, of course, you're going to ultimately be judged by your production on the field. But, hey, they've seen that, man. At this point, if they've done their homework on you, they've seen what you've been able to accomplish on the field. So now you have to just go out and confirm with them. They've seen the tape. They've seen you go out and make these plays. You just got to confirm to them that you're the exact same guy. You're going to produce the same. And, of course, that personally, like, you're a dude that's going to fit the culture and the setup that they have going on there. Now, in those conversations with all those different people, what is some of the feedback you've received from them at the next level? What about your skill set do you think really is going to translate well to, playing, whether it is in the NFL, UFL, CFL, whatever the next opportunity is for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think from a pretty consistent standpoint, they've all kind of really loved the ball hawk capability, to be able to high point a ball and the frame. They all like the big body receiver. They like the 6'3", 210. Someone they can throw on the outside. I can go all over. I could be in the slot too. But just being able to have that big body on the outside that can go up and really catch a ball. Because for me, I kind of always stand on like not having it be a 50-50 ball. It's always a 90-10 ball. When it comes to me, and I kind of solidifying that. And it is always a 90-10 with me. I'm coming down with it 90% of the time. But and then also special teams. So, I started off special teams just 2 seasons ago for the first time at kick returner. And obviously went in there right away, got great yardage and things like that, and was, first team all conference returner also my first year. Then second year, obviously before the injury, was already on pace to do even better than that. So just being able to kind of utilize myself all over the place, because opportunities start with special teams when it comes, to the pro
100%.
level. And so then being able to see kind of just my work ethic and being able to contribute maybe even outside of the offense of realm and be able to do it on special teams is super huge, because special teams is super important, which we know, and the league loves to throw those rookie guys in those kind of positions. So I talked to plenty of teams about playing those roles on special teams, and I'm all for it, no matter if it's going down tackling somebody. Like I told them multiple times in the last couple of weeks, I actually missed defense and going down and hitting somebody. So that means that, kickoff team, I would love to do it, And then
I'm sure you had a lot of guys that loved hearing that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They loved it, and I can get pretty chippy too, man. So just from that standpoint, it's kind of just my skill set being a big receiver, high point, and then being able to also utilize myself on special teams has been super huge for these teams.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So Wednesday, the pro day, that's the 15th.
Yes.
Yep.
15th.
So 15th pro day, obviously whatever's next, you're going to take it, at 100%, get you back recovered, get you 100% active, and you're going to show out. Pumped up for you, man. There's going to be an opportunity that comes for you. I think the tough part right now is the unknown, right? The unknown and out of your control, and you've put the hay in the barn. I think that's usually the best way of saying it, right? Hay is in the barn. Now we just got to go to work and control what you can control. So I'm excited for you, man. Excited to follow along with this process, brother. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on here.
In NAIA football, we've got a couple quarterbacks making their way into the professional scene, starting off in arena football. And the one I really want to start talking about is Josh Kolka. We talked about him in his time at St. Francis. Shoot, my Northern Michigan Wildcats played against him when he was at Wayne State at the D2 level. Now, though, he's getting his chance in the Arena League, which is very exciting. Here's the tweet here. He is QB1 for this Albany Firebirds team that is the defending champions in this AF1, this Arena League. He gets the start, as you'll see here, because the former quarterback for this Albany team, I do believe, just got picked up by the UFL. That, of course, I'm talking about Sam Castronova. He signed with the Houston Gamblers of the UFL, and now stepping up is Kolka, who's going to step into these big roles. He had his debut just this last week, and again, you're coming in and being the quarterback number 1 for a team that's defending champions of this league. I don't care what level you're playing at, you got to step in and do the job right away. What makes it really interesting is that he's the younger brother of Tyler Kolka, also another NAIA guy, played at Lawrence Tech, who is the quarterback of the Nashville Cats and has kind of established himself as an arena guy and a pretty good one at that. So we got some Kolka genes here playing in the Arena Football League, which is always really exciting when you have any type of brotherly affair. Well, let's go right and hear it from Josh himself about this opportunity to lead the Firebirds now, coming off that championship, stepping in as the top quarterback for this team.
I first found out straight from Sam, actually. He came to my room, late Monday night, I think it was, and, told me, like, hey, you ready to be a starter? I just got the call from the UFL and stuff. So really that initial shock was more just, like, happy for him. Sam's been a great guy. He's taught me a lot. He knows my brother, so he kind of took me under his wing as kind of like an older brother kind of figure to me here. And, I was just really happy for him. And then, obviously, kind of realized, oh dang, that means I'm playing. So Coach Ware always says, like, in the very first meeting, it's like veterans set the standard and rookies gotta be quick to get to that standard. So I feel like Sam's helped me a lot. Obviously there's still some growing pains. I still have a lot to learn, but I do feel confident. I have a great group of guys around me, so I'm feeling good.
Timing is a little tough, but it doesn't really matter because it's next man up. That's the way football is. Kolka, we were real proud of him, what his development was through camp. He's going to be ready to play. He comes from a football family of all quarterbacks, so we're really excited to have him under center.
Pretty cool story there. Shout out to Tommy Valentine of WTEN for that great video. You can catch him on X for some content. But again, football family, man, and quarterbacks at that, which is a really, really neat ordeal. He got his first start this weekend for the Firebirds. They pull out a victory to keep that momentum rolling from the 2025 championship. And then you've got, here's a good flick of Kolka in his new threads under center for this squad. Looks like a decent little turnout down there in Albany for the Firebirds. So that's pretty awesome. This is the AF1. There are a couple different arena leagues. Some of you may be familiar with some and not others, but this is Arena Football 1. It started in 2025. This is a very young league, but again, a professional opportunity for these guys to go and get some different film and hopefully try and make their way up, like the former quarterback from the Firebirds, to find their way to a UFL, a CFL, and then obviously everyone's trying to play on Sundays. So love the fact that he's able to pursue this opportunity. This is a guy that, in 2 years at St. Francis, with a 65% completion percentage, had 6,300 yards and 67 touchdowns in 2 years with the Cougars. So absolutely balled out with that squad, which so really excited for him. He's a phenomenal dude. Have followed him through a lot of his journey. Another guy that we definitely have to mention is coming out of Kaiser, their quarterback, Shea Spencer, signing a deal with the Kentucky Barrels, also in the AF1. So we got a couple NAIA quarterbacks that are finding some potential homes here in this newly revamped Arena League. You talk about stats with Shea Spencer. Outside from the fact that this is a guy who's played in a lot of championship caliber environments and atmospheres, almost 9,700 career passing yards as a Seahawk down there in Kaiser in Florida, 80 passing touchdowns, and again, a 65% completion percentage. Both these guys, incredibly good clip in terms of taking care of the ball. What's interesting about him, and I actually didn't realize this, I didn't catch this until I was trying to do a little bit of research, is there was an announcement from the West Virginia Miners, a different Arena League team, about welcoming him to the squad in February, late February. So obviously, I don't know if that maybe didn't pan out or he just found this as a better opportunity, but he's gone from that West Virginia Miners team now to these Kentucky Barrels squad. So shout out to Shea Spencer. Excited for him to get another opportunity. Had him on the show for that national championship title game run that Kaiser had. So excited for both those guys. Definitely let me know if there are other NAIA or other small school guys that are making some good pro opportunities or getting some pro looks. But thank you all so much for tuning in to D1R 228. I appreciate you thoroughly. We got a lot of big stuff in store for you in 2026.